Welcome to Humanology on Air. My name is Sam, and today we're going to be talking about some of the biggest shifts that we're seeing in the AI landscape from a year ago to now. Today, you're going to be hearing from multiple Jan Kelly experts that are going to inspire you and show you what is really changing in this ecosystem. Let's dive in.
Let's talk about competitive intelligence. Traditionally, competitive intelligence has been done in a pretty typical way. We collect competitive data, we analyze it, we explain it, and then we make decisions on how to move forward based on this past historic data. But one thing that we do know is that competitors don't make moves on a monthly or quarterly or yearly basis. They're moving constantly. So why can't our competitive intelligence systems be constantly moving with them? What if competitive intelligence wasn't a moment in time report, but instead live signals? And imagine if this continuous stream of live intelligence could help us to make decisions right now, instead of waiting for a monthly or quarterly report. And with AI, this is possible today. But why does that matter for us marketers? It matters because timing is everything. Especially when competitors are moving so quickly, we need to be able to react just as quickly. Instead of waiting for those competitive projects to come to bay, live intelligence can help us to make those decisions faster. But why does that matter for us marketers? When you remove the lag between signals and actions, your organization changes drastically. Decisions then get made in real time, not retrospectively. And we all know that when it comes to beating out your competitors, that timing really matters, and it's really important for us to get ahead of these changes. Because when it comes to competitive pressure, the sooner you can be aware, the sooner you can get ahead, and the sooner you can get to market makes a really big difference for us marketers.
One of the biggest shifts that we're seeing when it comes to the power of AI is all about how brands and organizations are approaching research and discovery. When you think about how we typically approach research, it's in the form of a phase or a cycle. We identify the need for it, we brief it, we capture it in a deck, and then we use that as our source of truth for a really long period of time, sometimes days, weeks, months, sometimes years. Think about some of those personas that are sitting in folders on your desktop. But the reality is the market is changing, your customers are changing, the context in which all of this evolves is changing. And so that source of truth becomes a frozen truth that isn't really accurate anymore. With the power of AI, what we're able to do right now is create live insight engines. And that means that we can provide it any inputs we want, whether that be structured or unstructured data, and have AI constantly synthesizing, summarizing that information, and identifying patterns that we as marketers and humans can decide, is this something that's worth actioning on? And if so, how are we going to action it? And that's exactly the kind of thinking that inspired the head of insights at Unilever. He was actually inspired by Warren Buffett, who famously reads thousands and thousands of pages every week from a variety of different sources, on a variety of different topics, and in a variety of different formats. And the reason he does that is not because he wants to win at book club, even though I'm pretty sure he is winning at book club. The reason he does that is because that's when he starts actually seeing those patterns emerge. And so the head of insights at Unilever was like, well, AI can do that at scale. And now if I start feeding into it all of these different kinds of sources of information, that included things like song lyrics, pictures, videos, and things like that, maybe I'm going to start seeing patterns that we're not noticing right now. And that's how Breakfast for Dessert was born, which was an amazing campaign. It influenced their marketing, but it also influenced their product development. And the same model can be applied to the B2B space. Take 3M, for example. You know them for Post-its and Scotch tape, but they're also the products that power factories, hospitals, and construction sites. And so when they ask themselves, how can we tap into our customers on an ongoing basis so that we are not waiting for a report to action on what customers are asking for, or waiting for that voice of customer study to know what's going on, they created that live insights engine and gave it inputs such as call transcripts, warranty claims, field notes from their sales teams pulled from the CRM, emails, and things like that. And they were able to start seeing patterns emerge and were able to action on them immediately instead of waiting. Some of the changes that they made included, hospitals showing a lot of confusion around sizing. They went ahead and updated the packaging of their products. Or they were receiving a lot of complaints about a specific product being misinstalled, so they changed the installation instructions. They were receiving complaints about a specific vertical not understanding how to use the product, so they went ahead and created new training for that. And so the real shift that we're seeing, or that unlock we're seeing, is that we can go from frozen truth to live insights engine that are feeding us information on an ongoing basis and identifying those patterns for us so that we can make decisions based on what is happening right now.
Let's be honest, campaign optimizations typically meant waiting. We would monitor, tweak, report, repeat, and a lot of the insights would come after money had already been spent. But now AI has allowed us to move from hindsight into live reporting. And here's 3 great examples of that. When we look at creative and content, we've moved beyond scheduled refreshes. AI can now generate variations, test them instantly, diagnose fatigue or disinterest, and adapt instantly. And that means that ads can continually change as the audience engages with them, so that's delivering continued improved performance. When we look at how we've optimized audiences, in past, our targeting strategies and tests were still centered around a classic ICP. Now, AI is helping us to effectively move beyond those guides and helping us to identify new pockets of unexpected individuals. And it's doing so while the campaigns are live so that we are constantly reaching out to new individuals and garnering new opportunity. Lastly, let's talk about placements. Understandably, there has always been a concern with ad impressions and therefore budget going to low quality placements, websites, and apps. We used to tackle this with things like blacklists and keyword exclusions, which is not an effective long-term solution. But now AI can evaluate site and app context in real time and block unsafe or underperforming environments before a penny is even spent. So now when we look at how we optimize campaigns today versus a year ago, AI has really enabled real continuous improvement versus delayed reactions.
Most brands are still treating data like a history lesson. But in 2026, we're looking at data a bit differently. Because what if reporting stopped explaining the past and instead started preparing us for the future? One of the biggest AI shifts this year in the digital space is moving from hindsight to predictive foresight. We're moving past media post-mortems and past historical reporting and into live learning cycles. And if you're somebody that really cares about ROI, you should know that AI is helping us to see what will make the biggest impact. And this isn't just theory either. Marketers who are using predictive intelligence are actually seeing a 2.9% increase in their ROI. We have access to so many different signals and so many different types of data that now is really the time to put that all to good use. To really start predicting the future, predicting demand, predicting audience changes, instead of just using that data to explain historical performance. We're living in a time where AI and learning machines can help us to justify every dollar before it's even spent. So stop reporting on history and let's really start owning the future.
The big shift that we're seeing with creative is that AI is really creating a lot of space for exploration, space for ideation, space to really push an idea further before we're having to commit to it. Historically, the big idea was the end goal. We worked at it, we refined it, we presented it and sold it in, and then we quickly moved into the production process. But now we're finding that the big idea is just the entry point. Instead of rushing that process to gain approval, we're now able to take some time to explore the idea, to look at it with different tones, different expressions, different voices, and different formats. It's allowing us to prototype before we produce, compare sort of apples to apples, different variations of the same idea, and then really make strategic decisions about which direction we're going to go before we commit budget to it. We can even pressure test the creative with simulated focus groups, which really allows us to test things before they go live. This fundamentally changes the role of the creative team. This means we spend less time getting to one polished concept and rushing to that fact and more time exploring. This means that the role of the creative team becomes more about taste and judgment and choosing the direction that we follow. The work then shifts from proving one idea works to deciding which idea deserves to exist in the world. This allows us to take bigger swings and explore braver directions without as much risk, ultimately allowing us to feel more confident in our decision making and make better creative.
And that's our top 5 trends. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.